Hello, Happy New Year. It is the Jewish New Year, Shana Tova. It's the Jewish New Year starting tonight at sundown, and we're beginning the year 5781 in the Jewish calendar. I think about the lunar calendar every year at this time and wonder, why are we using a solar calendar instead of a lunar calendar when cultures all over the world have had lunar calendars to determine their religious ceremonies and holy days for centuries, more, thousands of years. So I was thinking as we approach the new year, and that this is a long, long history. We're at the year 5781. It's not really as short of a history as we think. And I started looking into calendars, and I found out there are calendars that go back even farther than the Jewish calendar. This just happens to be the calendar that I grew up knowing, besides the solar calendar that we all use. That is actually called the Gregorian calendar. The Gregorian calendar. And it was introduced by Pope Gregory the 13th. And I have some information on that, which is that I found this on Wikipedia, that it was named after Pope Gregory the 13th, and it was actually introduced by the Catholic Church. So it was the Catholic Church that first introduced the idea of a calendar based on the sun rather than the moon. I remember hearing before that Catholics worship the sun. Now, not to be offensive, but it means it's a pagan culture. And that's something that you can learn about from listening to Marcus Servant King, who we always reference. But they actually are doing their calendar based on the sun, and it was introduced in October of 1582. So the calendar we're using today, the solar calendar, is not very old, and in fact, it was not even accepted by every country right away. Greece did not accept this as their calendar until 1923. So the lunar calendar was kind of the norm throughout the world. Many, many cultures used it. If you look up lunar calendar, you can learn more about cultures that used that. And I just wanted to mention that it wasn't just obviously Jewish culture, but throughout the whole world, we had cultures using this calendar. In First Nations culture, the Native American tribes used a turtle's back pattern of scales to establish the lunar cycle. And so they had the scales surrounding the edge add up to 28, which is the number of days of a lunar cycle. And there were 13 months a year. And if you do the math, that's 364 days. So that's very, very close to what we call the solar calendar. Now, the solar calendar is just based on the position of the sun relative to the fixed stars, so they say. So the solar calendar is a man-made construct that's looking at things in the sky and making determinations. And actually only God can determine anything. But we're looking at it and saying, oh, I think I know what's happening up there. I think it's working this way, meaning orbits and galaxies and solar systems and everything that we think. And we think that Earth is going around the sun. So that is what we think, and that is what we take as reality because it's what we've been taught. So we've developed a calendar, a man-made calendar, that assumes that it knows, better than the calendar made by God. God gave us the moon cycles, which everyone can understand. You don't need to be a scientist. You don't need telescopes and satellites. The lunar calendar is the calendar that many, many cultures around the world have used forever. And actually, there's even lists of cultures that use that. And let me see, if you go back to Gregorian calendar, you can look up so many types of calendars. It's kind of amazing how many calendars there are around the world. And we've actually settled on this one calendar so that we can do commerce. It's actually done for civil purposes. Interesting, because civil life is the opposite of God-given life. Your country-given life is different from your God-given life. We've talked about this a lot. So we're using a solar calendar based on worship of the sun for civil purposes. That's paganism. That's worship of ourselves as God, as one, creating our own rules. This is how the universe works. This is how time works. We know better than God. But in reality, the sun was given to us so we can know what time it is, and the moon was given to us so we would know what month it is. That's how it was given to us so we understand it. We can't see anything beyond that, so anything that scientists says, oh yeah, I have this very special telescope that explains exactly how the Earth and the sun move around each other, and it's something that we can't prove. I was thinking about this a lot because I think that we need to start thinking more lunar. We have to start thinking more in terms of the Earth cycles. That's what every indigenous culture throughout the world has done, and their New Year's are always based on lunar cycles. This New Year for the Jewish people, it starts at the harvest time. So we're reaping all of the rewards of working hard in the fields, and we're preparing for the fall and winter, which is the most festive time of year. And so that's when we're starting our new year. The solar calendar, the Gregorian calendar, starts the new year in the dead of winter. I don't know why. It's just the way it is. But I think that when we are doing everything based on the solar calendar and not what the reality is that we understand, that we were made to understand, that was given to us for our understanding, that works in ways we can't explain no matter how hard we try, I think when we are taken out of that, we're taken out of the natural world. And we're put into this kind of man-made construct of time. And ultimately, I think that this is going to keep us from shifting higher in dimension because we're third dimensional. And by controlling our perception of time, that keeps us blocked from moving past it. There are other reasons why humans are not fourth dimensional or higher. If humans knew what was going to happen before it happened, if time appeared as it actually is, which is all happening at the same time, we would try to change things in ways we couldn't. I have learned that manifestation is actually impossible. Predicting things, prophesying is possible because everything's already happened. So when we say we're manifesting things, if we're manifesting positively, we are going with God's plan. It means that we are doing the right thing. It doesn't mean that we created anything. He created it and we understood it and we went in the right direction. We went with God. So we're trying to manipulate time and we're trying to turn it into something. What it is the rulers of the world, the false rulers, are saying we know better. We're scientists. We have all the technology to tell you how it all works. In reality, they don't know. They're just manipulating us with so-called facts. And they've got fictional pieces of paper on the wall that says they got these credentials from this business called a university. So that's who we're listening to. In reality, everything was put up there in the sky to let us know exactly how it is. When we are changing time of day, the daylight savings time is coming up. That's another man-made manipulation of time. We did an episode about this before, about how daylight saving time is a total Psy-op. It's totally made to screw up our body clocks. It's completely an artificial construct. Time does not change. Nothing changes except the number you attribute to a time of day. That's not actually changing the time. It's a fictional change. Time operates the same way. It doesn't change. The animals don't know the difference. The plants don't know. Only we think that that's a different time. So I don't want to go on and on about this because really when you start looking into calendars, it's a wormhole. I mean, there's just one more I'll share with you just to let you know how deep this thing goes. Now, when you go to Wikipedia and look up Gregorian calendar, that's where you find many other calendars listed down the side. And I don't think these are even all of them. But the very last one listed is an artificial intelligence calendar. It's called Unix Time. And when you read this, it's going to blow your mind. The AI has their own way of attributing a number to every second that there is. And that's how they think of time. So in Unix Time, this is the last type of calendar I'm going to tell you about because there are so many and most of them are lunar calendars and they're made by humans that are with an understanding of God's creation and how it works. So all of these indigenous calendars throughout the world are in line with reality, whereas the Gregorian calendar takes us into a different type of reality, still physical, still 3D, we can understand it, but then the artificial intelligence has their own time. They have this Unix time, and they say 2 layers of encoding make up Unix time. The first layer encodes a point in time as a scalar real number, which represents the number of seconds that have passed since 0 o'clock UTC, Thursday, January 1st, 1970. Maybe 1970 was the year AI really started to take over. They had big, huge computers back then, taking up buildings, and they've just gotten smaller and smaller. Maybe that's around when they started. The second layer encodes that number as a sequence of bits or decimal digits. Now, I'm working on an article right now. It's taking me a while to finish. It's on how the AI manipulates us with math, and time is part of that too. By trying to manipulate our perception of time, the AI is controlling us in the third dimension and keeping us from understanding the fourth and higher. It's a total block. And I have some more. Let's see. Well, that's it from Wikipedia for now. But this is not something that humans can understand so much, that they're being used for an AI agenda. So when university professors are telling you, oh, we understand how this all works, they're actually obliterating a true understanding of universal energy forces. They're manipulating our world and our perception of our world by assigning numbers to everything. So instead of us understanding things just intuitively in our hearts as energetic forces, things that are beyond us, things that should be treated with great respect, we should definitely revere that force which created it all. But what they're doing is they're taking us out of that and they're obliterating the true nature of it. So we don't understand that everything is just beyond us. It's universal energy, life force, consciousness. So that's a lot on lunar calendars, but I really do think that the solar calendar and all these manipulations of time are there to block our understanding of things beyond us. And ultimately, we do need to kind of go back to doing things more simply the way it was created. We don't need even clocks. We don't need any kind of machines to understand time as it actually is. Well, with that in mind, just food for thought as we celebrate the new year. Thank you for listening. We do have a lot more to talk about coming up, and I've been getting a lot of questions about things. So we will be answering more questions about your legal name questions. So people want to know about a lot of things that we've talked about in the name and identity, but we're going to give more detail. So thank you so much for listening. We'll be back again with more soon, and have a very happy new year.